I'm Mark Roach, and this is FutureWise Energy, where we decode the signals beneath the static in global energy markets. 30 years ago, I entered this industry reluctantly. I entered as a son of a law enforcement officer from the Ozarks who pushed both his sons to leave the Ozarks and find something bigger and better, more just and fair, better for a family. The oil patch seemed to fit that ambition, offering an escape from local corruption into what, at the time, I didn't realize would be a moral complexity on a vastly larger scale. Now, over 3 decades, I've weathered price swings from boardroom battles over billion-dollar deals to rig floors. I've been an alien observer, working hands-on at every level of upstream operations, but never profiting far beyond feeding my own family. In many ways, I offered my services in charity to those who followed me into organizations sharing knowledge for their safety and welfare rather than personal gain. Now, this unique position gave me the distance to see what others who were caught up in wealth creation and, what they might have was missing. So when people ask me, low oil prices are good, right? Well, they're seeing only the surface. What they don't understand is the hidden burden we're all carrying. While American families save roughly $1,700 annually at the gas pump through government interventions that keep oil artificially cheap, they're unknowingly paying over $6,200 in hidden cost by some calculations, which I'll share here. Healthcare bills from pollution-related illnesses, environmental damage, military expenditures protecting supply lines, infrastructure inefficiencies caused by sprawling development patterns. The net result? A $4,500 annual cost per household. The U.S. federal government provides the fossil fuel industry with nearly $35 billion annually in direct subsidies. These subsidies create a 30,000% return on investment for companies that spend millions lobbying Congress. Meanwhile, we're told this represents free market capitalism. Today's market reflects these distortions perfectly. WTI crude has fallen to $58.47, Brent to $61.96, making 5-month lows. The International Energy Agency warns of a record 4 million barrels per day oil glut expected in 2026. Yet this apparent abundance comes at the cost of genuine market price discovery. The geopolitical theater surrounding these prices reveals the true nature of our energy-dependent system. President Trump recently claimed Indian Prime Minister Modi agreed to halt Russian oil purchases only to have India's foreign ministry deny any such conversation. India imports 1.62 million barrels per day from Russia, about 33% of its total oil imports. The confusion created immediate market volatility, demonstrating how dependent we are on political theater rather than fundamental supply and demand. Meanwhile, Trump's administration has intensified sanctions on Chinese energy infrastructure, targeting terminals that handle 9% of China's crude imports. China's defiant response, vowing to take necessary measures to ensure energy security, illustrates how artificially suppressed oil prices have created global dependencies that now serve as weapons of economic warfare. These dynamics play out while U.S. production remains near record levels at 13.63 million barrels per day, achieved with declining rig counts. The total rig count sits at 547, down from 585 a year ago. This isn't efficiency. It's the exhaustion of Tier 1 inventory, and the industry is approaching the limits of current completion technology. Argentina and Venezuela, countries I've witnessed firsthand where we pursue cheap oil under the guise of development assistance, represent the human cost of this system. Small-scale operators, people who work like farmers trying to survive geopolitical currents surrounding this global commodity, become pawns in the larger game of dominance and control. What strikes me most profoundly after 3 decades is how our failure to develop authentic, sustainable ways of living created this dependency. We chose highly centralized systems that concentrate on power rather than small interconnected communities spread globally. This centralization leaves common people dominated by the force and violence that consumes our planet. 8 billion human beings remain in conflict over resources and power structures that this oil-dependent system both enables and requires. The true cost of gasoline, when all externalities are included, by many calculations approaches $15 per gallon. Yet consumers make decisions based on $3 prices, creating one of the largest market failures in modern economy. The current oversupply environment, with crude inventories building at alarming rates, masks the depletion of easily accessible reserves. The sustainability of record production with declining rig counts represents a key challenge. We're extracting maximum value from depleting assets while failing to invest adequately in long-term resource development. In China, sanctions forced state-owned Sinopec to reduce operating rates to 80%, potentially cutting monthly crude runs by 3.636%. These disruptions ripple through global supply chains, affecting everything from manufacturing costs to household budgets worldwide. The OPEC Plus coalition's modest production increase of 137,000 barrels per day reflect growing concerns about oversupply, yet also reveal dwindling spare capacity. Total slack capacity stands at just 4 million barrels per day, with most members producing near maximum levels. This leaves markets vulnerable to supply shocks despite current abundance. After 30 years in this industry, I carry the weight of these contradictions daily. I sustain families acting from a practical point of service toward a system I've grown to question, worked within structures I've learned to distrust. The promise of cheap energy comes with costs that are anything but cheap. They're simply hidden, externalized, and paid by those with the least power to resist. Breaking free requires more than individual willpower. It demands fundamental reconsideration of what we define as success. The easy way to live that oil enables provides material comfort at the cost of authenticity, community resilience, and the collective well-being. True success might look different: small-scale, localized, sustainable ways of organizing society that don't require massive extraction, transportation, and combustion of fossil fuels to function. But making that transition requires confronting uncomfortable truths about how our current lifestyle depends on the systems we might wish to change. The path forward requires honest acknowledgement of these costs, courage to imagine different ways of living, and collective will to make choices prioritizing long-term stability over short-term convenience. Whether we can summon that transformation remains one of the defining questions of our time. Current market conditions demand disciplined approaches to capital allocation and operational efficiency. Companies must maintain debt reduction and cash flow generation rather than pursuing growth that strains balance sheets in a lower price environment. The survivors will be those who invest in efficiency improvements that reduce break-even cost while preparing for eventual market recovery. The next decade's landscape will be consolidated, connected, and more strategic. Environmental, social, and governance considerations have evolved from compliance requirements to competitive advantages. Operators with strong ESG performance gain access to lower cost capital and stakeholder relationships that provide flexibility during challenging periods. The global energy trade is being restructured around security considerations as much as economic efficiency. U.S. energy exports serve as strategic assets, providing geopolitical influence alongside commercial returns. The multipolar world emerging from current tensions creates both challenges and opportunities for American energy companies. Success in this requirement requires operational excellence, financial discipline, and strategic focus on the highest return opportunities. The companies maintaining strong balance sheets and positioning for market recovery will emerge as winners from this challenging period. The future always arrives with static. The key is recognizing those who align with disruption's pace, invest in new tools, and extract value from volatility. Those will thrive while others become museum pieces for analysts to dissect. I'm Mark Roach, and this is FutureWise Energy. Keep your wits about you, your eyes wide open, and be ready to improvise.